Hey guys, JCTheSniper, coming to you again with another knife review, and this time I have the Endura 4, and this is a blue FRN handled flat ground version in a VG10 steel, and I think it looks awesome. Look at that blade, big old flat ground blade. It's sweet. I think it's great, and I like that color. So, anyway, we'll just jump right in here. First of all, usage, I think you'd put this knife in. This is an EDC blade, and it's also possibly a defensive blade. These are great for EDC, just because it's an extremely light knife, and it's just very good for cutting tasks. I like the flat ground blade, makes it a nice slicer, but also it has a lot of features ergonomically. The size of the blade is good for a defensive blade, gives you a lot of reach. You can get a lot of reach because you can choke back on the handle, good jimping, things like that, which make this a very good defensive blade as well. So it's either going to be an EDC or a defensive blade, or both. Something you're going to carry as an EDC that you're also going to want to be able to press into emergency defensive use if necessary. So I think that's the optimal use for this knife. Size and weight of this knife: the blade length is 3 3/4 inches. The overall length is 8 3/4 inches. Closed length, 5 inches. Hole diameter is 1/2 inch. As I said, it's a VG10 steel, and this blade weighs 3.4 ounces, so it's very light for a blade of this size to be 3.4 ounces. Very, very light. Not quite as light as some of the previous Enduras, which didn't have steel liners, because this has, I don't know if you can see them a little bit in there, but this has skeletonized steel liners. So it's a little bit heavier than some previous versions, but still very light. And I like the steel liners personally. Blade thickness is 1/8 of an inch at the thickest point there. Handle material, as I said, is FRN. So that's the specs on it, and I like the size of it personally. I don't think it's too big or bulky to carry. It's very thin. Well, not very thin, I guess, but it's reasonably thin. It's not the thinnest knife that I own, but it's certainly not the thickest either. So if you compare it next to my M16, you can see it's actually a pretty good amount thicker, or thinner rather, than my M16. So I don't have a problem carrying this. So I think it's a very carryable knife, thickness wise and weight wise. Moving on, the steel's a VG10, which I think is a great steel. It's a very durable and hard wearing steel. It's a hard steel, and it holds an edge well, and you can get this thing razor sharp. I mean, it is wickedly sharp, and it came that way, so it just goes right through stuff with no effort. So it's very, very sharp. I was very impressed with how sharp this thing was straight out of the box, so that's a good thing. And the blade shape, as I said, is excellent. I think this is a great blade shape. It's kind of almost a leaf-shaped blade, and I'm a fan of that wide blade design. I just think it looks really nice, and it's flat ground, which I think is really pretty. Flat ground blades are just my favorite. And as you can see, this blade tapers this way as well as this way, so it gets very thin towards the front, while not getting too delicate, I don't think. But that gives you a great piercing point for if you need to put a hole in something or in someone. Great piercing point. Also, it makes the blade lighter. and I just think it's a really pretty and very useful blade shape. You get some belly here, not a whole lot, but you do get some, and as I said, nice point, so I like that. Speed's pretty good. If you've owned an Endura, you know that it's not quite as easy sometimes as other knives. You know, this comes out easier and faster than an Endura, and you know, it's just the way it is. However, well, even this comes out faster than the Endura just because the spring in there is lighter, but it comes out pretty quick. I mean, you kind of got to get used to it, and you do need to use it. You'll never be able to just, well, maybe you'll be able to, but it'd be very difficult just to flip it open without any wrist action, so you need a little bit of a wrist flick, but it does come out pretty quickly. The speed doesn't bother me at all. I think it's fast enough for what it is, because you've got, you know, almost a 4-inch chunk of steel coming out of the handle, and it's going to be a little bit slower than some smaller knives. So that is that. Lockup is a backlocking knife, which I'm a big fan of. I think this is probably my favorite locking type for knives. I just like the backlock design, and I have a number of them, as you've probably seen if you've watched any of my videos. So, you know, I'm a fan. And the reason I like the backlocking design is that it's very strong, and I think easy to operate. You know, you got the liner lock design. This design is not nearly as strong because you've got a very thin piece of steel, as opposed to that really thick piece of steel that engages the entire rear portion of the blade there to hold it closed. So it's just a much stronger design than the liner lock. This thing can get forced to the side and allow the blade to close. It's almost impossible to force one of these because of the way it's designed. You pretty much have to push the thing in to let it unlock. And these do have the David Boy dent, they call that, and it's just dented in a little bit there to keep you from inadvertently depressing the lock as you grip the knife tightly. So I don't think it's necessary. I've never accidentally closed a knife, but you know, or at least accidentally closed one of these that way, but you know, maybe it'll help. So I don't mind it, and it lightens it, and I don't think it causes any other problems, so I'm perfectly fine with it. So the lockup's very good. It's a very strong lockup. There's no movement side to side or up and down in this blade. It locks in there solid. Pretty much all Spyderco knives are like that. And the pivot point is adjustable, so you can tighten it should it ever loosen up any. As discussed, the handle material is FRN, which is a very strong, cold and heat resistant material. I like FRN. Ergonomics on this knife are great. You know, it's pretty close to the same as my bird caracaras because they're designed, I mean, these are Spyderco designed basically. So as you can see, the caracara is almost exactly the same, a little bit different blade shape, mostly aesthetic differences because the cutting surface is pretty much the same, except for the fact that this is a hollow ground, which most of the Enduras are. So very similar in that respect to the caracara, and so the ergonomics are just as excellent as the caracara. The one thing that the caracara has, which the Spyderco Endura does not, is this finger choil up here. And I really like the finger choil on the caracara because it lets you choke up and get a good forward grip on it. You know, whether you're wanting to make a stabbing attack on someone, which generally I'd hold back here, but you might choke up on it, or if you just want to do some fine cutting work. A little bit more difficult here because you're going to be holding it back here rather than being able to choke all the way up here. But that's not a major drawback in my opinion. I think it works just fine. This does have a 4-way positionable clip, as you can see, which I've automatically put up here, which is where I always have it, and it comes here, so I didn't need to change it, but I put all of my clips there in a tip down carry position. So I like the options, so that's nice. It does have a lanyard hole. It's kind of small, but it's there. So if you want to, you could put a lanyard on this knife. And let's see what else. Ergonomically speaking, this is nice. The jimping is really great here on the back of this bump. This really locks your thumb in, and obviously that's a very aggressive thumb ramp as well. You can get a very, very good grip on this blade, which is part of the reason I say that it could serve well as a defensive blade. It's just very, very easy to grip. The Volcano grip is bidirectional on the Spydercos, and it's very, very grippy. More grippy even than the texturing on my Cara, so I like that. However, even though this isn't aggressive gripping, I don't find that it tears up my pants, because as you can see, they've put the Spyderco logo here, and that's where the clip is sitting. So the clip is pressing your pants against a smooth portion of the knife, and I think that's just an excellent design, because this Cara doesn't have that, and it can tend to rip on your pants as you put it in. So I think that's a great thing. Keeps it from tearing up your pants and stuff. So excellent job on that one. So just, it feels great in hand. You can hold it back. You have a couple different gripping options for this because of the way these finger grip things are designed. You can hold it all the way back here if you wanted. You could choke up to here, or you can move all the way up here, and it's comfortable in any of those positions. If you want to go for a reverse grip, it's also comfortable because your fingers lay right in along those. So works for a lot of different gripping variations, and I like that. Clip design is great. It's straightforward, no nonsense. It's just a clip. I like the fact that it's blackened, and I really like it on this because I think it stands out nicely. It doesn't hold very deep in your pocket. You get about that much sticking out, but that's just part of the design of these Enduras. They're all like that. I mean, it just is. So if you want a knife that buries deeper in your pocket, you just don't get an Endura. Just kind of comes with it. Or a Cara. All the Caras are like that as well. And durability on this is excellent, just like all Spyderco knives. If you need to clean it, you can. You can take it fully apart. It is assembled by torque screws, so you could take that apart and clean it out if you need to. Like I said earlier, skeletonized steel liners for strength. So it's a very strong knife in that manner, and I like that. Also, I just think this is really pretty. I really love this blue color. And this version of the Endura 4 with the flat ground blade and the colored handles, they come in several different colors. There's a green and a purple and this really pretty blue. They're a limited run for 2010, so if you want one of these, you probably ought to go ahead and snap one up pretty quickly. I think the cool factor on them is just really nice. And obviously these retail for $95. I got this one for $50. So you can probably find them. You're going to find them between $65 and $95 generally. I think probably between 50. Well, you could probably get them between 50 and 65 if you look for them on the online and stuff. So I think it's a good value. And once they're gone, then the value will go up. And Spyderco is good about doing that kind of thing with their knives, and I like that too. So I think this knife is, in the role of defensive blade, I think it's great. I like it better than my M16, and I actually like it better than my Cara, just because I think the jimping is a little bit better and the thumb ramp's a little bit more aggressive, so it locks your hand in a little bit better, and I just think this is a really awesome blade. So it has replaced my Cara as my primary EDC for now. Something may replace that in the future. Yes, we'll see. So for now, this has been JCTheSniper doing his review of the Spyderco Endura 4 with the flat ground blade and the blue handle. JCTheSniper signing off.